Welcome back. Welcome back. It is Let's Talk Tuesday. You know what day it is. This means we're going to just talk about some things.
Feels like it was just yesterday.
It was 2 weeks ago, but it does feel like it was just yesterday. Today we're going to be talking about breaking habits. But before we get into it, hey, if this is your first time listening, or if you know someone else that maybe, could just use some encouragement in a marriage, or even just in their personal life with breaking chains, please share it, like it, no matter what platform you're on. If you're on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, like it, share it, just because we want to make sure that we're just impacting marriages and people's lives. So we're just doing our best.
So you did it.
I did what?
Like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
I did.
You
I
did
know.
it. Well done. Well done. Hey, we are Broken for Better, Kurt and Denette. And listen, our whole mantra is that, we really want to be a fitness center, not a trauma center for your relationship.
Yes.
We want to come alongside you. Not that we won't be a trauma center, because we've had our own trauma in
Yes.
our marriage.
Yes, we have.
But we believe that if you will attend a fitness center regularly, you quite possibly can avoid the trauma center. And so that's our whole heart, that we would be a fitness center, not a trauma center. So it is exciting to be here today to just talk habits.
That's right. Talking habits. So, okay, speaking of habits, if you don't know this about my husband, he has mild OCD. Is mild a good word?
I just think we leave the garage open every time we
Every
leave.
time. He has to check certain things every time. And I used to fight it. When we first got married, I used to be like, I think we did. He'd be like, no. He would check it. And then for a season, we had like an app that you could see if the garage was closed. Because I don't think that works anymore, does it? Because we still have to check it.
Well, you're going to put me on blast right here?
Yeah.
Everybody?
So he has some
I didn't fix the drywall
tendencies.
yet
He
either.
has some tendencies. Yeah, you didn't fix the drywall. He has some tendencies because of OCD, but I don't want to label it, whatever. It's just we have these ruts. We have these tendencies, which can also be called habits. And habits can be good. Habits can be bad.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of habits. But we and the Schaer household like to call it a bee in the bonnet. When Kurt gets a bee in his bonnet, no matter what is happening, no matter how crazy life is, no matter what we're trying to juggle, that one thing is going to get done because he's focused. He's laser focused on it. But habits are a little bit different because there's something that you form over time, and they kind of determine what your day is going to be. They set your tone. So with that in mind, why don't you give me some thoughts on habits and how you see them? What are some of the things that you would explain when it comes to habits?
Yeah, well, for one, I'll tell you, I am a very habitual person when I do get that in my head, and it's wonderful on good things, but it's horrific on bad things. And as my wife, now being together 28 years, especially on the negative side, you've bore the brunt of a lot of those bad habits. Now you've had some good ones too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prayerfully, hopefully. But there's been a lot of those bad ones that have affected our marriage, have affected our relationship, have affected how we parent.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about habits for me is, I think, first being open and honest enough to be able to stare it in the face, to be able to say that's a habit, to be able to say that's a negative habit. Like, I see it doing negative damage to our relationship. A lot of times we don't want to face those things, right? It's just, that's who I am, accept it. And that's not necessarily, there's certain things in our lives that are habits God didn't form me to have a porn habit.
Right.
That was a negative habit that I picked up at a very early age. Then I walked that out. I brought that into our marriage. That's a negative thing. They can't say, well, that's just who I am, accept that.
Right.
No, that's me staring myself in the face and going, no, you got an issue. Like, you've got to figure that thing out.
Yeah.
When it came to, anything, that whether it was, alcohol or whatever that looks like, sports. I mean, there's good things that can become bad.
Yeah. The gym.
The gym. Yes, the gym. When you're in, you're in.
You're in.
But it's just, even good things can become out of balance.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you learn about habits is there's a trigger, there's a response, and then there's the reward, right?
Mm.
There's something that triggers that habit. There's something that, okay, why is it that every time I feel this way, I go to this, right? If you do studies about, and I'll just take pornography. If you do studies about pornography, a lot of men do that because they feel less than in their own marriage, and so they
and women. The statistics are changing drastically with that, especially even in marriages.
Yeah, I watched a whole podcast the other day on that. Which shout out to The Basement, Tim Ross. Man, you want a good podcast?
Yeah.
Check that thing out because it is amazing.
It's so authentic. Yeah.
But even this guy was saying like it's 50-50.
Yeah.
And they try to tap into hitting that dopamine spot that is not being fulfilled in other ways. And so there's this trigger of, okay, what causes me to do that? When I look at myself in the mirror and I see myself as overweight, well, now do I get this habit that I need to go to the gym over and over? Do I get a bad habit that I've got to stop eating? What is the habit that's formed that's created this in me? What's the trigger? Because if I can find the trigger, I can potentially curb the behavior. With every trigger, then there's a response. It responds you to do something else. So feeling depression, loneliness, insecurity, what then is my response in that? What behavior is associated to that? And this is where, Dee, that I feel like many of us, we don't want to get in those parts of our hearts. If I want to be the most authentic me to the Lord, I got to be willing to do that. But then if I want to be the greatest partner for you, then I need to be willing to get into that. What is my triggers? What are the responses? And then why do I respond that way? What's the reward? What's the gratification? Why is it that I've created this habit? What am I getting from it? And then what am I getting from it? Is that something that's going to sustain me, or is that temporary pleasure like in the moment?
Yeah.
Because a lot of that stuff, man, it may be gratifying in that second, but it's not sustainable long term. It's not the thing that carries the family.
So, in thinking about a habit and thinking about, you said, you brought up porn, you brought up, eating habits, you brought up different things. When you think about the word habit, I think we can find an excuse for almost anything. Like we can find but I'm not this bad, or, but at least I'm not doing this. I'm looking at porn, but at least I'm not stepping out on my wife. Or, I'm, eating midnight snacks, but at least I'm not doing drugs, right? At least I'm not, still sucking down a bottle every night.
Although ice cream at 10 o'clock became like a drug. I felt like I needed that crap every night.
So for the person that's watching, or even for our own selves, what do you think, like how do you determine the difference between a healthy habit and a non-healthy habit? Because we can almost, at least I know personally, I can almost replace things that, okay, well, I think this is too far. This is the line. So I'm going to replace this line with this, or at least I'm not doing that. So even in that, and it's more than behavior modification. Even, raising 3 boys, we always try to talk about it's not the behavior, it's the heart. Like it's the heart behind the motive, it's the heart behind the action. Like, is it beneficial? But what would you say to the person that's maybe using their habits as an excuse? How do they differentiate between whether or not they're healthy or hurtful?
I think you really, everything in the light of God's word, right? Like, I think you can begin to find out, do these things that I do, are they building me up? Are they making me look more like Christ? If you're a believer, they look more like Christ. I know we have people on here that aren't even believers, but are these things that you're doing, do you see yourself walking in the image of how you were created? Yeah. If what you're doing is a habit that hurts people, hurts yourself, tears you down, makes you feel yucky afterwards, that's probably not a healthy habit. I can also look at, I know people in my world that they're like so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good.
Oh, for sure.
And they'll be quick to tell you how they've memorized the entirety of the Bible and they spend 9 hours a day with the Lord, and their habit is all of that. Meanwhile, they're self-righteous, they don't love people, and they're arrogant, and they're really, well, I would tend to say that your habits that you formed have become unhealthy. Does
that strike a nerve a little bit? Just a little, maybe.
Yeah,
they're not habitual lovers of God's children, because even that.
But they could tell you all about it.
Right.
So You know,
Yeah.
that's where I really think it's the honesty. And I say it every time I preach, and this is kind of like my mantra, right? You can lie to everyone in the room, but you can't lie to yourself, and you can't lie to God.
Right.
Be honest enough with yourself to go, man, let me look at my life, and how has my life, how are my habits impacting those around me? So I'll take like the gym. I have recently, really, in the last few months, really began to love the gym. It's a discipline now for me. It's become a habit that each day I go to the gym or I go to boxing, right? That is my thing. Well, this habit that I've created has now created conversation. People see a difference in the way I look, a difference in the way I feel. And so now the conversations are, bro, what are you doing? Okay, well, I'm going to the gym. Well, these people are, hey, do you think, man, could I spend time with you at the gym?
Yeah.
Could I go, man, can we work out together?
Yeah.
And it's not that I got it all figured out, but I have a habit that I would say this is a healthy habit. It potentially is impacting those around me to make them better people. It allows me to spend time with them. It allows them to get physical. This is a habit that's creating health. Now, if I spent 5 hours at the gym, allowed no one to come with me, was in my own little world, it would hurt our relationship.
Yeah.
And it would hurt my ministry in the way. So
Right.
I don't know that that would be a healthy habit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a very fine line. I think, when you look at some eating and porn and all these kind of things, yes, it's very easy to classify those are negative. I don't do those.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think as we really begin to look at our lives and if we care about our marriages, and this is where, Broken for Better is such a cue name for us, that you have to look, where are things in my life that I can be broken in,
Right.
but because I'm broken, I can now be better. And I think as we begin to really analyze those deep part of your heart, those deep things that you do, how are your habits affecting the ones that you love?
So using that word broken, right? Obviously, we're talking about, how when we break down the things that we hide from, there's transparency in marriage. So we're able to have authentic relationship, right? So, and even taking into consideration the gym, there was a point in time, if you don't mind sharing, there was a point in time a few months ago that you looked at me and said, because of this, because I had a fear, because of what we're walking through, I had a legitimate fear, you were unhealthy. It wasn't like like misattraction or anything, but it was you weren't healthy, you weren't feeling good, your blood pressure was high. It was all these things.
Yeah.
So I had a fear, and so I brought you that fear, and I said, I can't lose someone else right now.
Yeah.
And so that brokenness in me caused what? It caused response. And I think when we think about our habits, it's sometimes it doesn't, we have to come to a crossroad to realize, are my habits harming? Are my habits hurting? Are my habits capable of healing? And I think, I've heard you say it before, it's not until the pain of where we are overcomes the outcome, or how do you say it? I'm messing it up. The desire of where we want to be, that will make changes.
Yeah. There's a big thing there that I think is really key, and especially in relationships, especially for guys. Guys we live with the heart to provide, love, and serve the ones that we're called to steward, right? So I would do anything for you. You know that. I would take a bullet for you. Like, that's my lifestyle for you, right? People cross eyes at you or they say something different to you, and I'll get all bent out of shape in a second, right? Had you come to me and said, Kurt, you are way overweight, your blood pressure's hurting this family, you drink 3 beers a day, you're eating 6 hot dogs a day, what the heck are you doing, you fat slob?
That wouldn't have worked?
No.
You don't think that would work?
No, it wouldn't have worked. You came to me with this mindset of, hey, Kurt, this is the way I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And this is what your habits are causing inside of me. That now drives me to go, listen, I hear you.
Yeah.
And because I care about you and I care about myself enough, I can correct that behavior.
Yeah.
I can create new habits. Boom, I'm in. And that sparked my gym thing. I think so many people that we sit in front of, right?
Yeah.
There's this bad habit, there's something that happens, And now what the spouse does is they spend all their time reminding that spouse, do you see what your habit caused? And they drive this point to where
Yeah.
they make a spouse feel less than,
Yeah.
rather than going, listen, you had a bad habit. I'm in your corner. We've all failed. We've all done it. I'm in your corner to help you. What can I do to help this?
Yeah.
Instead of just beating a person down to go, look, when you get caught in a bad habit, you already feel crappy enough. Period.
Yeah.
That when you come to me in September and go, Kurt, I'm really concerned. We've lost a child, and now my secondary fear, what I'm dealing with most, is losing another person.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I can grab, because I love you, I can grab a hold of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's tangible. So wait, what in my behavior am I doing? Wow, I'm not eating properly. Wow, I've stopped going to the gym. Wow, I am probably, consuming, more beer than I probably should have. That's putting on a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Wow, oh man, I can see all that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let me correct that. How you handle a habit and how you take that to your spouse, or how you take that to a loved one, it determines a lot of the response that you will get.
Right.
You bring it to me in a certain package, I want no part of that thing.
Yeah.
You just got to be, how that's handled is a big deal. But again, I think for you it's easier, and I'll always put it, it's easier. Me having a bad habit and changing it is not dependent upon how you bring it to me. I should be willing and honest enough to go, oh, that's a bad habit. Wow. I guess probably deep down in my heart, I knew I had bad habits.
Well,
I just
we
didn't
all,
care.
I think we
Right?
all do, and I think it's a matter of, again, it's like those hidden things that we hold on to because they satisfy us. They fuel us in a way. They give us something. They gratify.
I don't know if they satisfy.
That's
gratify.
a great clarification. Yeah, they definitely gratify us. And so they're hard to give up, because especially when you're walking through hurt, or you're walking through loss, or you're walking through, maybe your marriage isn't the best and you feel lonely, it's something that's tangible.
Yeah.
And so it's so easy to grab hold of those things. I think it's so easy.
Yeah, I think we're, in our society, it's too easy to come up with excuses.
Yeah.
Fellas, if you're not treating your spouse correctly, be big enough and bold enough to look that in the eye.
Yeah.
Women, if you're not respecting your husband, you don't treat him with honor, be big enough to go, I have an issue. Don't hang it up with, this is the way I was raised, and all of that may be true.
Yeah.
But be honest enough to go, man, I want to get better daily.
Yeah.
Our relationship, man, we're sitting here doing this marriage thing and coming alongside and being a fitness center, and it's like, okay, but we're daily working on our own thing.
Yeah, no, of course we are.
So we're only continue to work on, which allows us now a platform to go, hey, listen, we may be a little farther down the highway.
Yeah.
Just be willing to go, where in me can I fix habits that may be healthy or they may be hurting? What can I look at and go, okay, look, if you're a workaholic,
Yeah.
you've created a work habit that you may hang your hat on. Man, I've heard people proud because they work 60 to 70 hours a week.
Yeah. No, for
What?
sure. Yeah.
Why are you proud about that? You're gaining everything that the world has to offer,
Yeah.
and you're losing the very things right under your eyes.
What are the things you can take with you?
It's
Not
like,
a paycheck. Yeah.
don't, working 80 hours, that's a terrible habit.
Yeah.
And I would look you dead in the face and go, okay, because everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else.
Right. Absolutely.
So every habit that you say yes to, you're saying no to something or someone else. Be willing to look at it.
I think as women too, I know you touched on, if your spouse is struggling with a habit and you bring it to them and you're hard on them. I want to clarify that doesn't mean you're not allowed to have emotion or hurt, because obviously certain habits cause pain. Certain habits cause horrific amounts of pain that as a couple, you have to work through. But I think the kicker is, and the thing to remind ourselves is that the only thing we can work on is ourselves. And so when your spouse comes to you or doesn't come to you and you find out about a habit, or there's a habit, even if it's, overworking or whatever, that's really, really just affecting your family, affecting your relationship, there's a season where you're allowed to express your pain, but then you also have to remember that we're on the same team. Like, I need to be just as for him as God is for me. Even though he's hurt me, even though we've struggled, even though there's been this break in relationship and trust, I'm still for him. He's still for me. And I think what so often can happen when the habits are on display, whatever they may be, that's all we see in that person is their habit. That's all we see is that habit. And that's not who they are. They're a child of God, hopefully. They're at least a child that God loves and is trying to grab their heart. And so how we respond to our loved one when they're walking through a horrific habit and doing their best to fight it will either put wind in their sails and help them or really deflate them. It really will.
So you don't see them as human, you see them as a habit.
Oftentimes,
like,
when you're working
label
through,
we give them, right?
Yeah,
like,
you are
my
this.
husband, he's a porn addict.
Yeah.
No, your husband is a child of God who has a sin problem.
Right. Yeah.
Your husband your wife is a daughter of God who has a sin problem.
Yeah.
Like, don't put the wrong label on somebody, because you give somebody a label, they'll become that label.
Oh yeah.
Just you keep speaking it and just watch it keep happening. See them as who they are, a child of God.
Yeah.
That needs grace and redemption.
Doesn't mean you're okay with it. It doesn't mean that you ignore it, but it means that you speak to it differently. It means that you talk to your spouse differently. Yeah. It means that you treat them differently. And you treat them like the child that they are.
Yeah. You don't accept sin.
No.
I mean, you don't,
it's not welcome
sin
in your
is
home.
sin.
Yeah.
You call it out. It is what it is. And some sin is, listen, the reality is you have to get a third party involved.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain things that, man, let's go get a third party, because you may think a habit's bad just because you never saw that. So, I think of something in our house. We had 3 boys, and one of the things they loved to do was wrestle.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. I mean, couches flying, pillows going, kids running around, hopping over. It was nutty, right? Well, I remember that drove you bonkers.
Drove me crazy. Because why? Because someone would always get hurt. And you would always be like, we're good, we're good, we're good. We've had too many trips how many broken bones do we have? 7? I don't know.
That's the number of completion.
But actually, not one of them ever happened.
Wrestling. Exactly. But here I am. I grew up in a house that's what we did.
Yeah, yeah.
So just because it was a habit in our home that you didn't like,
yeah,
doesn't mean it was wrong.
I don't know. Drove me crazy.
She's like, well, that's up for debate. But what I'm getting at is, just because you think something isn't right and you don't like it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad habit.
Yeah.
So it's good to get a third party in there, a marriage coach, to come in and go, okay, let's talk. Where's the middle ground?
Yeah.
So what
There's
was
certain
our middle
things
ground?
that are evident.
Listen, fellas, you can wrestle all day long when mom's not home. That's it. Like, I don't care if you wrestle till you bleed. And that happened, by the way. But let's just do it when it's right. You know what I mean? So, anyway, I'm not sure that's the right answer.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know if I would take that advice, but
it's boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that's, that in this whole habit forming thing, when you look at, okay, Kurt, so we have this habit.
Yeah.
I don't like this habit. What do? Get help and have boundaries.
Right.
What is, what does that look like for you? I'll never forget being so proud of one of my sons. He came home early, from a date, and I'm like, bro, what are you doing home so early? I thought you were on a date.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's not good for us to be out past this time together.
Yeah.
And this was my 20-year-old son. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, who says that?
Yeah.
But the reality is they had a habit and they put boundaries in to not bust their habit.
Right.
That's grown.
Yeah.
Like I got adults that won't do that.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
for sure.
So it's like, man, that is so good. It's grab help and have boundaries.
And I think sometimes, it sounds, we only address the habits and the negative. We only address the habits when they're out of control or when they hurt us or when they cause pain and conflict. That habit that you just said that they said it before the chaos. They set that habit before destruction, before something happened. That was a habit preset. And so, we talk about wanting to be a gym and not a hospital, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, if you're watching this tomorrow or whatever, maybe you could just have a conversation with your spouse or your friend or your family member that you're watching this and trying to gain just wisdom from. Maybe you have a conversation ahead of time. What are some habits of ours that maybe are out of control? What are some of my habits that you think are pulling out of our relationship or taking away from our relationship? Those are healthy conversations if they're brought to the table in a healthy way, to where, hey, we're both for each other. What are some habits that, man, we're not really hitting the mark and we need to do better, or I need to do better?
And I'll tell you, like, totally side note, totally another topic we can discuss. Many people can't have vulnerable conversations because they can't have healthy conversations. You may hear that and go, well, man, I could never have that conversation. They won't even listen to me. What that means is you can't be vulnerable, but I would argue you probably aren't having healthy conversations either.
Yeah.
When you have healthy conversations, you can have vulnerable conversations. Many people, right, they say, man, when's the last time you prayed with your spouse? I don't pray with myself. That's really weird. And I would say, why is it weird? You can't pray with your spouse because getting vulnerable before the Lord is very difficult.
Yeah.
If you can't get vulnerable with your spouse normally, you definitely aren't going to get vulnerable with your spouse in front of the Lord.
So clarify that for someone that's listening. I know we will, in the coming weeks, be talking about healthy communication, but give me a 10-second. Because I think we all think that the way we communicate is healthy. I think we all do. Like, I don't think most of us don't go into a conversation thinking, man, I do not talk well. I'm mean and I'm ruthless and I just hate my spouse. I don't think that's how we go into it. I think we all think we're coming into it.
If you do, you don't need a fitness center. You need a trauma center.
So how, in just a little 10-second spiel, would you classify a healthy conversation?
It's the way we operate. Listen, I'm feeling this way. I say it all the time, you can't argue with somebody's feelings. That's the way they feel. You agree or you disagree.
Yeah.
When you have a conversation, hey, I'm feeling this way. Okay, then we can go. So if you and I can't have healthy conversations, and I say, hey, listen, I'm feeling like we can't have healthy conversations, and you blow up at me.
What?
Well, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is what I'm saying. It's
right.
Like
and we've been there.
I'm feeling.
Trust me, we've been there. I struggle with correction. I do. I struggle. I know. I don't like anyone to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
That's a whole side note. I don't have to tell you.
I know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
If someone can't receive correction, that's a problem. And what you're going to find out is the problem is never the problem.
Right.
Never the problem. If we're not having, if well, man, we're never intimate together. Okay, well,
why?
What's the problem?
Yeah.
Like, are you not intimate because you can't communicate? Are you not intimate emotionally so that it's hard to be intimate physically? Like, there's always problems, and I think that's where having someone come alongside and just go, hey, let's pull back the layers. Let me see it from a 50,000 foot view. Okay, great. This is So you just got to be willing to do the work, man.
Yeah.
Marriage is work, and it takes work.
That's right. That's right. It's not easy. So before we close, I just want to challenge you guys. I have a little challenge just popped in my head, and you can share it. You don't have to share it, but we love to hear feedback from you guys. It's like just what you're getting out of it, what you know. So if you have any of that, we love to hear from you. Even if you don't want to put it on a public forum, send us a side note. But I want to challenge you to either personally or with your spouse, would prefer if it was with your spouse, talk about a habit that you can work on, like a habit like, hey, I need work in this area. I want to work on fixing this habit or dropping this habit, and a habit that you can add to your relationship. Whether that be, hey, I want to tell you I love you every morning. I want to kiss goodbye in the morning. I want to hold your hand in public. I know you just challenged your men's group to hold their spouse's hand, but just one bad habit, one good habit. That's what I want to challenge you with. You got anything else?
I want to have it to kiss you every day before I leave.
Oh, you want to kiss me right now?
Can
You have to. Okay.
That's
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I meant a different kiss.
Oh, okay. That's gonna be later.
Yeah.
Cause
you know, I'm thankful that you challenged them, and because I do think it's not just hearing this stuff.
Yeah. It's
implementing this stuff.
Yes, we want it to be applicable.
If you just hear, right, you could, and I think I've done this before. I know I've done this. You listen to two people, and it's why we try to be so authentic and real, because it's like we're trying to we're working it out ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Now we do a lot of study, we do a lot of reading, and so I feel like we're in a great place. We've got a lot of help on ourselves, so we're in a place to do this, and God's given us a lot of revelation and some things. But you can hear something like this and just go, man, that's this pie in the sky that I can never
get there. Yeah.
And I would immediately go, there's where you start.
Yep.
Like, that's a belief that now will become behavior.
Yeah.
You believe you'll never get there, guess what? You'll never get there. Mm-hmm. Don't be mad. You spoke it for months, days, years. You got exactly what you spoke.
Just one step.
One step.
Yeah.
What's a habit that I can remove? What's a habit that I can implement?
Yeah.
I love you. Look, your spouse may never say I love you back, and it may drive you nutty. You keep pressing that button.
Yep.
Because there's going to be a day that as you're praying for that spouse, there's going to be a day where they choose sacrifice over selfishness. Where I have heard you for 3 months tell me you love me when I walk out the door. God's going to, you've been praying for them, you've been believing, and one time they're going to take sacrifice over their selfishness and go, I love you too. Like, that's this habit thing. That's where I look at it in our relationship. If I'm selfish, I'm not willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
But if I'll sacrifice, if I'll die to myself for our relationship, two became one. I'm dying to myself so that you and I can become one. It's like, okay, now I'm taking sacrifice over selfishness.
Yeah.
And I think, if we could sum it up and you look at this, what's an area that you can die to self? Maybe you've been talking about going to the gym for 2.5 years. Go to the gym. Like, it's all, just start.
Yeah.
Just start on a treadmill. One of the habits, and I just shared this with my men's group that I meet with, like, one of the greatest things you can do is take a walk with your spouse. It costs you no money. You can walk about a mile in 20 minutes if you walk slow.
And I walk slow. He likes to run when he walks. I'm like, are we walking together or are we in a marathon?
That thinks I'm in like an Olympic competitive walking. And what I love is
I'm kidding.
When we've been walking for like a half mile and I'm just getting it, I'm like, and then I start to realize
I'm not doing it.
I feel like I'm walking by myself. We came as two, and I think I've become one.
I'm not
doing it. And I turned around and she stopped like a quarter mile back, and she's standing there. And I'm like, oh crap! So then it's the moment like, do I walk back? And
so don't take a walk like that. Take a
stroll.
A stroll.
A leisurely stroll.
Hand in hand.
Hand in hand, like, and what. Like, it's crazy. We've talked to, and I've had these conversations. You couldn't tell me the last time you held your spouse's hand.
Yeah.
well, what? Like, that's nutty to me.
Yeah. So not only bad habits, one bad habit, what can I work on? One good habit, what can I work on?
Yeah. The next time you go out, just grab your spouse's hand. See what happens.
Gently. You said that so fiercely. You don't grab it. Just grab it. Just hold it. That might scare them. They're like, what are you doing? No. Okay. We're digressing. So anyways. All right. So thank you guys so much. I think we're
Listen.
done. You got anything else you want to share?
Any platform, follow, subscribe.
Yes.
Broken for Better is a ministry that
Yeah.
sows into marriages. If we have benefited you, you can sow into the ministry as well.
Absolutely.
Brokenforbetter.com. Help us continue to get this information in front of people, in front of others as we do. And can I just tell you this?
What's that?
I love you.
I love you too, very much. Very grateful for you. Very grateful for you. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. We got 2 more weeks of breaking chains. So 2 more weeks. See you then.